And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Deconversion Stories. Today's story is going to be a little bit different. I'm talking with Purple Rhymes with Orange, and you were a pagan for some time, but before that, did you have any religious beliefs, and what led you into paganism, and then ultimately into atheism and becoming an activist?
Well, I was actually born Catholic, but
Okay.
even my family was kind of falling out of the church at that point, But sorry, I was trying to get the Yahoo chat here. But yeah, so I really, as a kid, it was only going to church occasionally. And actually, when I was like 8 or 9 years old, the priest actually asked my mother to stop sending me to the children's Bible study because I was asking too many questions that made the nuns uncomfortable.
Oh, wow. And I guess I didn't want you to get into the habit. Sorry, I had to.
Well, I was disrupting the classes because the nuns really weren't prepared to answer questions. They were just supposed to, read the passages and do their spiel, and we were supposed to just all sit there quietly and listen to it.
Right. Well, carry on, man.
So, I went through a lot of things. I, was one of the things is we lived in a predominantly Jewish community. Like it was like 85% Jewish when I was growing up.
And what area was that?
It was Skokie, Illinois, northern suburb of Chicago.
Okay. I actually dated a girl that I lived in Israel with that is from that area as well. So yeah, it's predominantly Jewish there for sure.
Yeah. So, even when I was actually interested in it and trying to learn about the Bible, 4 out of 5 people I was talking to had read it in Hebrew and kept pointing out all the translation errors. So it was kind of hard to take it as the unerring word of God when it's like, okay, then how come reading it in a different language, they're getting a different story?
Yeah.
And that the Hebrew version was supposed to be closer to the original text. So if somebody had it wrong, it was probably my group. So.
Well, I know that the Old Testament or whatnot and the Torah are all written in Hebrew, even like Old Hebrew, not even modern Hebrew, but because there is a bit of a difference. But translations, you're always going to lose something regardless of what language it comes from originally. So there's always stuff lost in translation.
Yeah. So, I attended services with various friends and that, and got a pretty wide exposure of, seeing church services and from several different denominations, and a couple of times in a couple of different Jewish synagogues, and just kind of comparing notes. And it's like, even when I'm doing this at like 12 years old, I'm, just kind of wondering what the big fuss is about. It's like, okay, we're all agreed we're praying to the same guy. Okay, the Jewish people aren't sure about Jesus, but outside of that, we just seem to be quibbling over details.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 14, with my brother, I belonged to a Methodist church for a while. And my eldest brother is on the religious scale somewhere between a fanatic and a zealot.
Oh, wow.
So,
How do you
and
deal with that?
fortunately, I only see him about, a couple weekends a year, so it doesn't come up too much.
All right.
But he also thinks specifically me of anyone in the family that it is his personal mission to save my soul. It's like I've kind of reviewed the options, and actually, hell sounds like a lot more fun anyway. So even if I give you
Considering
that,
everyone that's probably going to be there, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
even if I give you that everything you're telling me is correct, please don't bother.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, okay. I just wanted to say a little something here. Sassy Atheist is with us in the chat, and her Twitter disappeared, and I just found out why, because everyone was kind of like, "Where'd she go?" And it's because she was being harassed too much by Christians, and it was just too much drama, which is understandable.
Yeah, I know that last week she had been posting some things about that, and I could see it was getting her pretty shaken up there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure at some time when it all cools down, Sassy, you'll be able to create another profile and just hang out with the people that you like, rather than have the Christians follow you around. All right, so back to the story.
Yeah. So, got the wrong window. Well, my brother had actually given me a Bible for Christmas when I was 14. So I decided I'm, trying to learn about the stuff. So I decided I was going to read it cover to cover, like a couple of chapters each night before bed. And yeah, you really get into that stuff, and you get into the stuff that they don't bring up too often in the sermons. And it's like, I'm pretty sure it was, in the Leviticus that they're talking about all the, all the laws for people entering the temple and that. And I'm like, well, a lot of this seemed to be very exclusionary and going against the all-loving God thing.
Mm-hmm.
And just I don't remember a chapter and verse or anything like that, but just that there was a whole section in there on the people who are unclean and forbidden to enter the temple, and it's like anyone who is sick or crippled was not supposed to be able to go in. And it's like, aren't these the people who really need God's help the most?
You'd
And yet
think.
they're forbidden to go there.
It seems really strange. I know the part you're speaking about too, and I think it's early on in Leviticus where that comes up. I just can't remember exactly.
Yeah, and I found that profoundly disturbing, and even arranged a couple of just private sessions with one of the priests from our church, and talked to him about it, and really felt I didn't get any answers. About all he told me was, well, we focus more on the New Testament and don't pay too much attention to that. It's like, no, you're still doing sermons out of the Old Testament every week, so you've got to give me a better explanation.
Yeah,
So
I
that
mean,
was pretty
they
much,
love to include Genesis, right?
yeah, that was pretty much the point where I, gave up on Christianity. And actually for, quite a few years there in my early 20s, I just kind of went around that I didn't have a religion. Then I had a roommate who just started bringing pagan books home from the library, and I started looking at some of that stuff, and it's like, most of this pretty much went along with what I already believed. So,
Mhm.
then I found this was living in Minneapolis, and there was quite an active pagan community there. So So I actually got into that community and, worked with some people in there, different groups. I never formally joined any one group, but just kind of the overall community, there were a lot of things of, people really helping each other out in that. And so I was with that for about 25 years.
Wow.
Then I wound up moving to New York and, was still following the basic pagan stuff. And I could kind of feel it kind of fading at that point, even that basically I had spent so long investigating all of it and still feeling that, it's all comforting and there's a lot of cool stuff here, but there wasn't any real evidence of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been very, very logical, very analytical about everything. And it's like, seriously, I was trying to find some answers. And after all this time and talking to people from all these different groups, I really didn't have any more answers. I just had a lot more mythology.
Right. That's exactly what I call that stuff too.
Yeah. Well, I was also a big fan of Joseph Campbell and, his work on world religions and basically his own analysis that all mythology is basically telling the same stories and just slightly different versions. But when you break it down, it's all the same characters.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I still have one of his. I had a few of his books for a while, but the one that made it through all of my multiple moves was the Occidental Mythology book, which is sitting out on the other room in a bookshelf right now. So.
I still have the whole Power of Myth series on DVD, and
cool.
I actually rewatched that about 2 years ago.
It's a good series.
Yeah. Joseph Campbell had a unique ability of being able to look at the belief systems from within their own culture. That he actually got excited about seeing it the way the people who practiced it saw it. He was never trying to take it apart or take anybody down.
No, I don't think that's the right way to go about it, really, anyways. So, well, for me, anyways, it's more the Socratic method to try and talk to people about what they believe and why, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And like I said, even through that time, I kind of participated with the community out there in New York. I was living in central New York, not New York City. But things, then by the time my fiance died, I had been questioning quite a bit. And just
did that at all change you in respect to any beliefs like that at all?
I don't think it was so much changing things as reaffirming things that were kind of already there, but I hadn't really, let fully surface and materialize.
Okay.
Because, this time when everybody's trying to comfort me in that and getting the same basic things of, well, she's in a better place and she'll no longer feel any pain and all this. And it's like, all that was feeling really hollow.
Well, the no longer feeling pain part is correct, but better place.
Yeah.
That's still debatable, right?
Yeah, so
just. And I'm sorry, by the way, I didn't know that either. So. Sorry to jump in.
Oh, yeah, just, through an odd string of things, that couple months after that, I wound up, a friend of ours broke up with his girlfriend and didn't have anywhere else to go, so he came, and stayed with me as a roommate. And he was already an atheist, and that's, of course, I asked him what he thought happened when people died, and he just said nothing. That's just the end, and it's like, after all this months of all this stuff, it's like that's the only thing that actually felt sincere and true.
Mm-hmm.
Even a lot of the people who were telling me about her going to heaven and that, I kind of got the feeling that this wasn't necessarily what they really believed. It's just what they felt they had to say at that time.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, the guy that moved in there with you said nothing happens. You go back to the same state you were in before you were born. So that's kind of the way I put it.
Yeah. And the whole thing about what happens after you die, I think for most people is the hardest thing to let go of.
Yeah, I agree.
So mostly I had, pretty much held to reincarnation, and this is one of those things that there's still some part of me that is holding on to that, more because if there is any kind of an afterlife, that seems to make the most sense. But again, there's nothing to support it. It's just kind of, in a logical sense, if we don't completely evaporate, nature recycles everything. Everything gets reused. So if we have a soul or a spirit, it would make sense to me that gets reused in some form.
Mm-hmm. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson, I think, put it quite eloquently. He says, we return to the earth to become food for the flora and fauna that we once fed off in our lives. So, and it kind of has a poetic end to it, I think.
Yeah, and actually, when I die, that is what I would literally like. Mm-hmm. It's generally not allowed in the United States, but I would rather the body not be prepared or embalmed or anything, but just put in a simple pine box, something that's going to degrade rather quickly,
mm-hmm.
and just bury me with a pine cone on my chest, so that as I decompose, I become food for the seeds. And in the most literal sense, then I would be reborn as a tree.
Yeah.
That the tree would use up everything that had been me.
Yeah. That's what an ex of mine did with one of her horses that passed away. She actually buried the horse and then planted an oak tree right on top of the horse. And this oak tree is freaking huge now. That was like 10 years ago. So, yeah. So it's amazing. It obviously used the body as a form of nutrient because it's just huge. And all the other horses like eating the leaves off of it now. So,
excuse me. When I die, I'm not opposed to cannibalism either. I mean, that's a more direct way. You'll see less gets wasted.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. Basically, once I've left it, it's an empty shell, and I'm not really that concerned with what happens to me. I'm more concerned about the ecological impact of what's left over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to be pretty much ecologically minded these days about just about everything now. What kind of an impact it's going to have on the ecosystem. It's part of why I do what I do, keeping the poisonous crap out of the ecosystem and just reusing it.
Yeah. Excuse me. So, I was trying to keep up with the scroll for the chat too, but I'm just Today was not a good day for me. I'm not at my best. So I can't really keep up
Yeah, you
with
were
the
telling
chat
me.
unless somebody flags me something.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, if I notice something, if anyone has questions for you, I'll be sure to pop them in there too. Would it be too much to ask if did something happen today that threw you off, or
Yeah, I had
if you?
just some routine medical stuff today. I started out, I had had an eye exam to get new glasses, and
Mhm.
right after that I was supposed to go and just have routine physical and check up on my meds and get all my prescriptions renewed. But right near the end of the eye exam, for some reason, I just went into a really bad anxiety attack, and
Oh, shitty.
I still can't figure out what triggered it. And unfortunately, what excuse me, the nature of an anxiety attack, if I can't identify why it's happening, that just causes more anxiety, and it just kind of
Right.
rolls into itself. And so yeah, I haven't had one that bad in quite a few years. I can't really even remember the last time. But I actually was to the point of throwing up in the doctor's office.
Wow.
So
Are you feeling a little bit better now, or?
well, I had been planning to prepare some notes and instead took the option to lay down for about 2 hours before we got into this. So,
Okay.
That helped, but I'm not as well organized here as I had hoped to be.
That's perfectly okay. I fly off the handle here, or I do things off the cuff here, so you can be just like me for
Yeah.
this one.
Well, I've, gone through the story so many times. I can, I've told it by memory enough times. It's just been 10 years since anybody's really asked me to go into it much.
You've got a message. You got a message from Bemilzebub, by the way, who said to thank you for the tripod, and it's given his videos the improvement that you hoped it would.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he put up an Amazon wish list, and it's like
Yeah.
he's been putting out good stuff. I wanted to do something to help him. And it's like that was the only item on his list that was in my price range. So, it's
Yeah. Thanks, Reese. Apparently, I look like a ball busting biker, so I give Reese anxiety. Apparently.
yeah. I also noticed you see Donna Beck in chat there. That is my
Yes.
companion. She's the one who coined my handle here. She was the one
Oh,
who kept
cool.
saying that nothing rhymes with purple and nothing rhymes with orange, so they should rhyme with each other.
There you go. Another one that nothing rhymes with apparently is silver. So,
Yeah, there were like, I found a list of 5 words that were supposed to not have any rhymes. Although since then, people have been, sending me stuff, and apparently there are words that rhyme with virtually all of them. That apparently sporange actually is a legitimate word. It's a term used by botanists that on a mushroom cap, the frilly structures on the bottom of the mushroom cap that hold the spores is the sporange.
Sporange. Yes, I've heard that before.
Yep. And somebody had also brought up that serpal actually has some similar limited usage in biology. I don't remember what the definition of it was now, though.
That one I haven't heard. So that's a new one on me. Learn something new every day.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more. When you got into the paganism, was there a specific branch you ended up in, like Druidism or Judaism or like Wicca, that kind of thing?
Oh, no, like I say, it was more a broader community. I went to rituals and that with different groups, just to kind of see everybody's different way of doing things. But I never really joined a group. I was kind of loosely affiliated with a group called CUPS, which is a Covenant Unitarian Universalist Pagans.
Okay, cool.
So they were a branch of the Unitarian Universalists in Minneapolis, and even with that, I didn't really do the rituals or that. Kind of went to the parties, helped out with some community service stuff they did.
That's great.
Well, the biggest thing I got into was that they had been doing like a Secret Santa thing, for just some of the very low income families in the area who, for whatever reason weren't able to get help anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And well, that worked out really well because I also am a toy collector and into the original Transformers from the 80s and a huge Lego collector. So
Cool.
I was in a couple of hobby groups for those, and I kind of mobilized those groups then to donate toys to this. And they had a program that they had been bringing in, each year, maybe just a couple $100 worth of donations. And once I got the toy collector groups mobilized on it, we were bringing in like $500 a year in toys for them. So we basically like tripled the number of families that they could help with that.
Very cool. I'm a huge Lego fan myself. I had tons of it growing up, but I ended up giving it to a friend of mine when he had kids. I said, they're going to need this someday. So the only thing I have left is the original Millennium Falcon that came out, because I said as a kid, if Lego and Star Wars ever got together, I'd be buying that crap, and the Boba Fett slave ship. So those are the only two I have left.
Yeah, that's what happens to most people. That's what the clubs always refer to as the Dark Ages. When you gave away your stuff, and then after you come back from college, you decide you want it back.
Well, I never took it back. I don't care. I just, the kids that I ended up giving it to now have given it to their kids, so it's gone.
Well, nobody ever takes it back. It's just always a lot of people spend, years trying to replace the stuff they remember having as a kid. I didn't go through that. The Legos were one thing that stayed with me.
Yeah.
So I still have all of mine going back to when I was 8 years old. Unfortunately, I was never good about keeping sets together, so they're all just loose pieces dumped into bins. But my fiance did not believe me when I had a lot of stuff in storage, and when we came back, we were gonna bring my stuff back to New York. And she did not believe me when I told her that her little minivan wasn't even big enough for the Lego collection, let alone the rest of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she was sure I was exaggerating until she saw the storage locker. It's like, yeah. But apart from the stuff that actually was in boxes, all the Star Wars and the superhero stuff that was, the relatively newer stuff that I'd gotten like in the last 10 years and kept in the sets, was more than 24 10-gallon totes full of loose pieces.
Wow. 24?
Yeah.
That's impressive. It must have been a bitch to move those around if you moved.
Yeah. Yeah, and it did. I had to move them. I'm living in Michigan now, so I've got them all in storage out at my mom's homestead.
Cool. You remember when they first started releasing all the little people, the little movable Lego figures?
The minifigs. Yep.
And they came out with the knights and stuff like that. One of my friends, when we were teenagers, built a Crusades scene with the green grass type flat Lego and some hills, and he had all these knights with the big red crosses on them, and then running over and slaughtering what he was calling the Muslims of the time, right? So he's running around. He made this a great scene with the Crusaders slaughtering Muslims, which I thought was pretty funny. He got an F in school for that too, by the way.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
That's unfortunate.
They thought it was Inappropriate.
Oh, historically accurate, but
Oh,
inappropriate.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
He actually a whole thing with it. It looks like I'm choppy. He wrote a whole thing with it too, like a little 10-page story about how the Crusades went. The teacher was she wasn't religious, but she was enough that she really didn't appreciate his work, so to speak. So yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
This is even before I even knew really what atheism was too. So
I've got the Monty Python and the Holy Grail. The one I have is something like the 30th edition box set, and one of the bonus tracks on there is somebody has recreated the entire Camelot scene in Legos.
yes, I have the same one. Yes, it's hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, I see what some of these people build. That's like, no, my skill level isn't nearly up there. I'm still the boxy little vehicles that you would have gotten from the 70s and early 80s is about the limit. I'm
I
not
kind
that
of want
artistic.
that's all right. I kind of want the they have Doctor Who sets now in the Dimensions brand of Lego.
Yeah.
That I kind of want to pick up a TARDIS and a Doctor Who figs, little minifigs. And Nadine said she had the little spaceman that was featured in the movie. We all had those, Nadine, back in the day when they brought those out. I had about 4 or 5 of the sets that you could get for the space.
Yep.
Man, I was all over that shit, man, as a kid. And anytime I got money for my birthday, it was right to the toy store, get some Lego.
Yeah, well, like you say about the minifigs, I have a couple of the townie sets, like the police station and the fire station, that were the predecessors to the current minifigs. They don't have any movable arms or legs.
I remember those. Yes, I think I had the police one for sure, and then I had the one that they came out with when they started having opposable arms. And
yeah.
stuff like that.
Well, that's
like, I'm a robot.
Yep. Well, that's I was born in '64, so I got my first Lego set around 1970. And at that time, it's like they only had like 4 colors. They didn't really have windows. They just had some transparent blocks. And kind of the most radical thing was when they started having sets that actually had actual wheels with rubber tires.
The ones that you could plug in too. They were electric. You could make them roll. Yeah, I remember those. I was a '66 kid myself, so I'm not too far behind you.
Yeah.
Born in '66, conceived in a '57 Chevy. So how do you like that? Yeah, well, so I don't know how we ended up talking about Lego, but it's always fun. Lego's awesome, so there's never a problem with that. So take us to, I guess, kind of your post-paganism. Like, how did you end up leaving or sort of drawing away from the paganism thing?
Well, like I said, I was just kind of active in the more general community. They do have a Pagan Pride Day, which they wind up putting out, festivals in, something like 500 different cities worldwide do.
There's one here.
Pagan Pride festivals. Yeah.
I went to a couple in the late '90s, so they've been going on here since I think about '94, give or take.
Yeah, '97 was the first one in Minnesota. I was actually involved in helping with that, helping get that going initially.
Very cool.
Yeah. But so when I was in New York, I was going to the ones there, and I don't know, it just did. Somehow it was just kind of losing its appeal or losing the feeling that it had any real meaning. It was all, all more showmanship, it seemed. And I don't think that the festivals or the people there really changed all that much. I mean, by that time it was the next generation coming up, so there were some changes. But like I say, I had been investigating all sorts of different groups and just finding out that it was more language and details, but they were all pretty much the same, and just none of them, all the psychic things and that, I couldn't find anything to really support any of it.
Right.
It's like, for me, I don't think I ever really strongly believed in anything. I was always looking for something to believe in.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And just, if you're really examining it, you can only go so long looking before you decide that, this is kind of a futile effort. There's really nothing you're going to find.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you want, when it comes to believing in something, of course, we tend to want to believe things that are, and not like. So when you're talking about world belief systems, religions, even things through paganism, stuff like that, all of it really just comes across as being mythological anyways. And these people that claim to be mediums and psychics and they do your astrology charts, that's all just a bunch of ancient horse shit that has just carried on, and people found ways to take advantage of others using this stuff, right? So, and it's literally the unscrupulous that are preying on the desperate and needy people. Is the way I look at it.
That does happen. That's definitely not the majority of what I saw.
Sure.
Most people sincerely were, trying to find something that was a connection to the universe, basically, how do I fit into the universe? What's my place? Do I have a purpose? The pagans did a lot more philosophical argument than Christians ever did. Because they were actually asking these kind of questions about, do we have free will? Are things preordained? Do I have a purpose, or is it something I have to create for myself?
Sure. I tend to side on the latter. Something you do have to create for yourself. You got to give yourself purpose.
Yeah.
And as for being connected to the universe, one thing I always tell people is, well, look at it this way. If stars didn't explode, you wouldn't exist. So you have all the elements of makeup of stars within you. Every atom, every molecule in your body comes from some star that exploded billions of years ago. As a matter of fact, you've got probably a couple of stars in this hand and a couple of different stars matter in this hand.
Yep.
So that's our connection, as we are all children of the stars, really.
Yeah. Well, I tried to, feel for a more literal sense of that. Mostly along the Gaia concept. That
sure.
Basically the belief that the entire Earth itself is a single living organism. Right. And we're all kind of like individual cells in this one body.
It's an interesting concept.
Yeah. So like, even as far as trying to do the magic and that not that not that I as a person would have any magic, but just that there was kind of the abstract energy force, that the magic was all around us. And it was just a person having the ability to maybe focus some of this energy on a specific task.
Sure. And I think we can actually, I don't know, I wouldn't say focus energy, but anytime you focus on anything you want to accomplish, if you have the right focus on it, you're going to accomplish it, fairly, regardless.
Yeah.
So, but I wouldn't attribute that to anything supernatural.
Yeah.
It's just, persistence.
And basically all the rituals and chants are just kind of to get everyone in sync, get everybody focused on the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. I used to be involved with a lot of stuff like that too. I also
So
went down the pagan road myself. So
yeah, I was taking one of my stepdaughters to some of the rituals, and it's like, yeah, she didn't really have a belief in any of it. She just, enjoyed the music and the dancing.
cool. Did you ever do any? I don't know if you're into them or not, but did you ever go into like any of those LARPing things, like live action role plays of like Renaissance-y kind of shit? Because I went to a couple of those with people that were also in pagan organizations. So
Um,
they're definitely interesting.
yeah, just outside of Minneapolis, they had a pretty good sized Renaissance fair every year.
Nice.
I went to that a number of times. I never went in costume or anything like that. I didn't get into it that big, but just to walk around and see other people.
I had a homemade Black Knight from the Monty Python series costume way back in the day, so I wore that one once.
Yeah.
As soon as I got there, everyone knew exactly what it was. So
Yep.
was
Yeah.
just
For a couple of years, I had a crush on this one wandering minstrel, and that was the only time I ever saw her. So that just kind of it. It's her 3 days out of the year, but yeah, she stayed on my mind pretty steady for 3-4 years.
Yeah, if only I had given her my number. That she could call you and serenade you over the phone.
Yeah. Well, it's just, the music was just so soothing and relaxing. Like I say, I have anxiety issues, so anything that relaxes me is very welcoming. And just kind of a little fantasy built around that she had this almost mystic ability to calm things that all the psychiatrists and all the drugs weren't able to do.
Oh man, people are making Monty Python comments in the comments. So I was a little distracted
Yeah.
there for a second.
Yeah, usually I try to keep up with reading the scroll too, and
Yeah,
just tonight I can't keep up with both.
that's all right. Just focus on this. Let's talk a little bit about your decision, I guess, to sort of get a little looser on the paganism and more towards becoming an atheist. Like, what made you sort of decide that that might be what you actually are?
Well, like I said, by the time I had the atheist roommate, it's pretty much the stuff he was saying was just kind of, it was stuff I had already internalized at some level. Just
Okay.
he was the first one who was willing to say it out loud.
Right. Okay. And then were you kind of like, yeah, that's me too, kind of thing, or
Yeah, pretty much. That,
okay,
guess I kind of felt at that point that, I had done the research, I had studied it, and and I took I took the scientific method to all of the pagan stuff.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, I know I'm not going to be able to prove any of this stuff, but let's line this up and see, does this contradict anything that is provable? Does it, I was always very much into science and math, and
Okay,
you know, just let's line it up, and anything that contradicts something that I know to be scientifically true, well, we've got to get rid of that bit.
sure,
So I even tried to form theories, about how the magic would work, and even getting into stuff of, alternate universes and quantum mechanics and that, and seeing, at some quantum level, can we find a way that a magic system would actually work?
sure. I actually have a book that I use for reference now. I actually bought it thinking that it might be worth something or worth educational value, anyways. But it's called Science of the Craft, and although a lot of it, you know, sounds sciency, there's really not a lot to it that can be verified by the scientific method. So
Yeah. Yeah, and just it kept coming back to that thing that, you know, just feeling I had really put in the effort to study this for, 25 years. And it's like, if there had been evidence of something, I should have found something by now.
Mm.
You know,
exactly.
so it all just kind of slowly dissolved with the realization that just after all this time and you've got nothing to show for all this research, you kind of got to give it up and, go on to something else. So the only thing that had any evidence of it was, back to the basic math and science. And
Exactly.
I didn't even realize it growing up, but apparently I did grow up in a pretty progressive public school system for the time. So we didn't get any of the evolution bullshit or that. I only got that from the church. That in the public school, everything was, that this is evolution, this is the way natural selection works. And it's like, even them saying that, no, the fossil record, there's all this evidence, so it's pretty well supported. And yeah, some of it we're filling in the gaps and doing some speculation, but for most of it, you can see from here to here. Yeah.
We can infer from the evidence we do have.
Yeah, well, and then the fact on that the more you study it, the more evidence you get to support it.
Exactly.
So that's showing that there must have been something there, because if they could predict what would be like the in-between stages of going from one animal to another, and then it's like they talk about this for maybe 10 years, but they analyze it and they predict it, and they've even gone so far as to predict, okay, well, if this is the animal that would be in between, what kind of, climate would it have lived in? Where were the descendants of this thing found? And that they could actually start predicting, like what part of the world and what layer of the structure, what layer of the geologic column they're going to find it in.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you know? They make these predictions and they go and dig where they think it's supposed to be, and they find pretty much what they thought they were going to find.
Yep. That specific kind of animal, like Kent Hovind likes to say.
Yeah.
I love his explanation of all these sediments. It just fucking cracks me up every time I hear him talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, you see, the flood there could make it. Shut up, Kent. Retard.
Yeah, I love their explanations for how the flood sorted these things into the different layers, and it's like, yeah, no. And any theory they give for it doesn't really explain why we don't have, trilobites and dinosaurs mixed up together in the same layer.
Right. Yeah, we got lots of those up here in the Badlands up here in Alberta, actually.
Oh yeah, that's prime fossil country.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've been there a couple times. It's just fantastic. You can don't step there. You're gonna step on a like literally. It's like that.
Well, that's my number one vacation spot if I had the money to go. I have to go up there and see the Royal Tyrrell Museum, because they're supposed to have the largest collection of mounted dinosaur fossils anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of money to go somewhere, it looks like I am now able to go to the Faithless Forum this year. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys down there if you're going to go.
Yeah, that's cool. I would have liked to go, but that was a bit out of my budget. And actually, I just blew all my money on a gaming convention at 2 weeks ago here.
Well, so worth it.
Yeah, well, that's again, it's the in Minneapolis, the Con on the North Gaming Convention, which is another thing that when I was living there, I was involved in helping organize like the first 5 years.
Excellent.
And I think this was their 27th or 28th year now, and it is still entirely nonprofit, entirely volunteer run. You know, I mean, they rent out space to dealers to come in and show their stuff, but they don't take any money from any companies, so they're free to make the decisions on everything that gets involved there. And it's
Great.
it's great to see how huge that's gotten, and that I'm able to be going back there every year again. You know, so I go, I put in, I run a couple of events.
I totally volunteer for stuff like that. I did a long time back, but I haven't done anything like that recently because just time is tough for me to get away from. I do volunteer at the as a cameraman for a friend of mine's film company when she does all the filming at the hot rod shows that come through here. So I run the camera, and she interviews some of the guests that come up, like D'Agostino or the people that starred in American Graffiti, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So
okay, I see Donna said this was the 27th year for the Con of the North.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Donna, for being such a plethora of information in the chat for us.
Yeah, we have a very unique and complex relationship. She lives in the apartment next door.
Oh,
you know, basically
cool.
Our kitchens are back to back here. And that's it.
Easy to swap recipes.
Well, generally she does most of the cooking and I do most of the cleanup work.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I do most of the eating.
Yeah.
Because that would be my job.
Well,
I'm not sure if anyone's. Oh, go ahead.
One of my problems is, left to my own devices, I'll tend to forget to eat for a couple of days at a time. So she kind of makes sure I eat something every day.
What could distract you so much that you wouldn't eat?
I just don't think about it. It never becomes a priority to make food.
Oh, okay. Not even when the stomach starts going, feed me, like nothing like that? Or?
Well, at some point, usually in about the third day, I'm like, well, did I eat today? Did I eat anything yesterday? I should probably eat something by now.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. Keeps the engine going, so to speak.
Yeah, but I have no schedule. I've never had a functioning biological clock that in any way synchronizes with the rest of the world.
No internal alarm system for waking up in the morning or anything like that?
No, not even remotely.
I hate mine because I get up at 4 a.m. to go to work every day to be there at 5. And on weekends, it sucks because I'm up. Like as soon as like 4:30ish rolls around, I'm like, ew. And I look at the clock and I go, fuck, I'm late for work. And then I realize it's Saturday. So it's like, I hate that. So you're lucky. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, well, I left to my own devices, if I'm working on a project or like if I'm doing my writing, I tend to work in big blocks that I'll work for like 30 hours straight, that the only time I'll get up is to go to the bathroom and refill my drink. And yeah, I'll go, for 25, 30 hours and then, finally just crash and I'll have to sleep and sleep for like 10 hours and get up and eat something and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely nothing near a 24-hour clock.
Just kind of its own random universal time.
Yeah.
So, hello, David. Let's talk a little bit about. You have a YouTube channel as well, which I should mention. So that, there's a link in the description too, by the way, people. And also his Twitter handle is also in the description as well if you want to follow him on Twitter as well. So,
yeah, I put up a few things on there for Yule. Some things I kind of rushed together and didn't have a decent microphone at the time, but I kind of gotten caught with it that I'm trying to produce some other stuff, but now it's like I think I should be able to do a bit better like this, and having trouble finishing anything because I'm not quite happy with the way it's turned out, so that I haven't put anything new up there since the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm. Beach, I did not see your question before. Beach Price had a question. He's like, maybe you missed the question. I'd like to know how the pagan U's, he has two U's, I guess. I'm not sure what that's about, but felt about the Jesus believers because the group that Beach was involved with was quite cruel to them.
I think he's probably meaning the Universal Unitarian group.
Oh. Okay, that makes total sense. Yeah. Sorry, I can be a little dumb sometimes.
Oh no, I have a lot of problems if somebody hasn't explained it, trying to figure out what the acronyms mean.
Okay.
When people are talking. So what was his question on that?
Just want to know how they felt about Jesus believers because the group that Beach was in was quite cruel to, I guess, Jesus believers or Christians in general. Hello, Duke.
It was a pretty good mix there. The Unitarian Universal Society in Minneapolis has their own building, and they would do kind of a religious, non-denominational service, and then they do kind of a secular service every week.
Mm-hmm.
So there were, I don't know what the percentages were, but there were a fair number of people there that were still holding to the basically Christian belief, in kind of a loose way. But, I'm guessing about half the group were probably atheists.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very specifically that they were a society. They got kind of uppity if anybody tried to call them a church.
But how did they treat believers?
Yeah, well, they were just very welcoming to everyone, whatever you wanted to believe in. And that's why there was the pagan side group there, because it's like, yeah, if you want to pray to the God in the Bible, or if you want to, pray to Odin or Zeus, it really doesn't matter to us.
Right. Okay. Oh, I actually knew that. Sorry, Beach. I just, for whatever reason, I was thinking of two different things at once, and sometimes I can really lead to my brain derailing. Anyway, yeah. So, so Beach was saying, "Trust me to get involved with a nasty UU group." She's saying she got involved with a nasty UU group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and there were some kind of scary pagan groups, and
yeah.
Every group has its fanatics, and they're all equally scary, no matter what they're trying to quote at you.
Absolutely. I remember wandering through an area here near where I live called the UBC Endowment Lands, which is the University of British Columbia and all the lands that surround it, which is on the water and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they have a forest called the Spirit Forest. And a lot of satanic groups would go in there. Well, actually, these were more Luciferians, which actually make satanic people look like children. But and there were sacrifices that they go in there into the Pacific Spirit Park, and they would sacrifice like animals, like neighborhood cats and shit. And they got in trouble for doing it, actually. So
yeah,
there's some pretty nasty people.
Yeah, there were within the pagan community. There was that same kind of fringe. There were certain groups that, generally were not looked well upon, and some of them were downright scary.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Although, even with those, it's like there were certain specific, I'm not going to name specific names or groups, but there were a few specific ones that were really scary and gave me a really bad impression. But then eventually when the internet came in and I was talking to people, in other states that identified the same way, and finding out that even though they're identifying with the same group name, they're practicing it really differently. And when I tell them about the people I ran into, they're like, holy shit, we don't want to be associated with that.
Yeah, for sure. And it sucks because they can be because of the association, they can make a lot more, I guess, benign, we'll say, pagans. They lump them all together. Any people of religious groups will lump them all together and think that they're all like sacrificing crazy people.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, that happens with the atheist community. It happened with the pagan community. And on the other hand, we kind of do the same thing a lot of times with the Christians, that, you take this fringe that's the worst example of it, and you kind of spread that around as being the whole group. And, people need to be careful about generalizing, and especially you get into pagan and atheist, and there's such broad terms that cover so many things. I mean, one of the things in the pagan community was that you can ask 10 pagans for a definition of what is paganism, and you'll get 12 different answers.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you could say the same thing about Christians too.
Yeah. So you want to be careful not to lump too many people together or paint with too broad a brush.
Right. Usually when I talk about some of the more nutty things, that I always make sure to mention that I'm referring to evangelicals and fundamentalist types when I talk about that sort of thing. Well, we've gone past the hour. Is there anything else that you would like to throw in that you might have suddenly went, oh yeah, I should have said that? Or
no, actually, we never really got a lot into the reincarnation stuff that I was planning to go into deeper.
Well, let's talk about that. I have no qualms going over an hour, as long as people are willing to hang on for the after party. So, talk a little bit about that. Like I'm assuming you had a belief in reincarnation at one time.
Yeah, actually very specific, from bits of dreams and that. I actually had felt that I had pinned down at least 4 previous lives, and I'll start with the most outrageous ones, which would be impossible to verify.
Okay.
One of them, and this goes back to my avatar, is that I actually had the belief that I had been a Torosaurus living in Montana at the end of the Cretaceous about 65 million years ago.
Awesome.
Let's see if I find the historical data to back that up. But
yeah, well, hey,
other than we knew those animals existed in that area at the time, that's all you've got.
Yeah, pretty much. Who knows?
Another one is I had a whole series of looking for surreal is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I've never actually done any hallucinogenic drugs, but from what people tell me, this would have been something like an LSD trip that I was having in my dreams. And I came to the conclusion that this was actually having been reincarnated in a society on another planet, and just that I no longer had the cultural context to put these images into, that I couldn't really make out what most of it was.
Wow, interesting. Like, were the visuals that you were having with these dreams, were they alien, I suppose?
Yeah. Actually, the image I got of myself was being about 7 feet tall with very lanky build and almost a lavender skin tone.
Wow. Sounds like how they used to describe the so-called Venusians. Or the Pleiadians, I think, was another one. They were super tall. Interesting.
Yeah. And that's, I remember that because there was a particular, that I was, in a battle in space, in some kind of like, single person fighter craft attacking this just massive battleship. Just part of a squadron. They're, one of like 100 fighters attacking this massive ship.
Sounds like Star Wars.
Yeah. you know, and just coming in to make a run on this ship and just seeing the flare of the anti-aircraft guns and just the whole ship kind of just melting off around me and just exploding. So that was the only one I actually saw where I died.
Oh, they say that, I don't know how true that is, but they often say that if you die in your dreams, you'll die in your sleep. So I don't know how true that is, because I've had dreams where I've fallen and hit the ground.
Yeah.
And I woke up going, oh, shit, and wiped the sweat off my brow kind of thing. But
I'd heard that too, and I thought maybe this was an exception because it was a past life memory thing. But
right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then
any more earthy type reincarnation things?
Yeah, I had a minor one of being something like the third son of a minor landholder in Essex, England, around the end of the 18th century.
Okay. The third son. That's quite specific.
Well, something like that. It was like the second or third son. I knew I wasn't the one who was going to inherit the land. I was pretty much screwed. That's about all I knew about it.
Yes, exactly. Duke was saying it's not true. I died in a dream once. And actually, I read his line there that he typed in. It reminded me of a dream I had one time too, where I drowned in my dream, and I remember seeing people gathered around my body trying to resuscitate me. I ended up writing a song about that. I felt that it may have been something that had actually happened and that I had experienced an out-of-body thing. So I called the song Immortal Realm. And if you want to hear it, it's on SoundCloud, by the way. It's kind of our tribute to the 80s rock sound.
Okay, I'll have to listen to that later. Yeah, the only one I had that actually had anything I could verify, and this was what freaked me out, because in the dreams I did get some rather specific information that I was very much at a loss to explain where I got it from.
Interesting.
And this story was a lot more impressive back in the 80s. For one, we didn't have the internet.
Yeah. Well, not till the end of the 80s, and it wasn't really an internet yet.
Yeah, but this was about being a British sailor in World War II.
Oh.
And, one of the things that always struck me, a lot of people talking about reincarnation were always someone famous, or at least, someone in the upper class. And basically I was just a, no-ranking grunt, one of over 1,000 people trying to keep the ship running. I just, the obscurity of the information I got seemed to lend it a lot of validity. And I found out eventually in 1995 that even though I was looking for information, even after I, found out what ship it was in that was the HMS Unicorn, was an aircraft carrier. Well, sort of an aircraft carrier. It was technically designated as an aircraft maintenance ship, which basically, that's its function was to be a floating repair bay for aircraft. It was never intended to actually be in combat. Although the British still didn't take the carriers, quite as seriously as the Japanese did. So they were losing carriers in the Pacific, and this thing got pushed into frontline service, even though the World War I battleships that were left over could outrun it. But
wow.
Yeah, even after I found out what the ship was, it was really hard to find any information about it. And I found out part of that was that up until 1995, there was very little information of it, because all of the ship's service records had been sealed by an order of the Crown.
Right.
That none of the service records could be released until 50 years after the end of hostilities. So while I was having the dreams and getting the information on this, it's like, this seemed like information that wasn't generally available to people. And I was used to going to the library and doing a lot of research. That's the librarians knew me by my first name and everything. So even though I spent several months looking for it before I found any book that had any reference to the ship. So I found that really strange because it was such an obscure ship.
Yeah, definitely. And that would lead one to think, wow, is there something to this?
Yeah.
Especially since it's such an obscure thing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really neat.
I had always, the naval history had always been an area I'd studied. So yeah, it was possible it was something I ran across in a book, years ago and had forgotten about, but it just seemed really strange the way the information came to me, and that even after I was looking for it, I couldn't find it again.
I think that's probable that you came across the name of it in something that you read in some sort of historical piece. And like you said, just sort of filed it back in the mind, and it just sat there until,
Yeah.
Of course, it worked a dream sequence of some kind. It's possible.
Yeah. So I've got a rather long piece that I wrote on that one of how
Cool.
I pieced it all together over the course of several years.
Very cool. I'll be honest with you. When you first said you were the hallucinatory drug thing, I thought you were going to say you were reincarnated from Jimi Hendrix. But you're already here before he died, so that can't be the real thing. But that's what I thought you were going to go with.
No, like I said, never anyone famous. I never even had a name to put with any of them.
Not even the military guy that you figured?
No, and like I say, it's just apparently my job had to do with preparing the planes for takeoff.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Because that's I was like up there on the deck and like underneath the wing of the plane checking things. I guess
Cool.
checking that the bombs were secured properly and things like that when they took off.
Right. Make sure all the nuts and bolts are still attached. And
yeah.
The gas cap isn't off. No one wants to be losing fuel when you're flying, so you got to make sure that gas cap's on there tight.
Well, and that was one of the scary images, was that once the planes had taken off and the Japanese planes are coming in to make an attack on the carrier, that, okay, well, they call them flat tops for a reason. I'm basically out here standing on something that there is no cover. It's an empty area 3 times the size of a football field, and
big target.
Fighter planes are coming down and strafing the deck, and you're seeing the bullet hits, in a row, walking right up to you.
Yeah.
But
so at least if you can see them, you can dodge them.
Well, there's nowhere for cover. All you can do is like lie flat on the deck and hope they don't hit you.
Zigzag.
Yeah.
Run zigzag. Awesome. And any other possible reincarnation things you had?
Those were the only ones I really, had any strong images of.
The ones that stuck with you, kind of thing?
Well, the ones that that there were enough recurring dreams that I could pick some information out of.
I gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, dreams are crazy, man. Sometimes you wake up from these things, and I don't know about you, but I've had dreams that seem so real. Like you'll be holding something in the dream, and then you'll suddenly come to, and you'll be looking down at your hands, like, oh shit, where'd it go? like a wallet full of money, or a gold brick, or something like that, right? Like, and then that's crazy. It's somehow they just seem so real.
Well, I've had sleep problems all my life, so I have had problems with that blurring at times, of trying to go through things, trying to figure out, okay, is this actually something I did yesterday, or was this just part of a dream?
Yeah, they can be
and
that real.
I've got to go looking for evidence to find out if this was something that actually happened, or ask someone else who seemed to be there.
Right. Right. Yeah. Do you remember if I did? What are you talking about? So that at points like that, you were dreaming.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, hi, Shannon. Thanks for dropping by. Shannon
Hello.
screamed out, "Purple!"
Yep, I just see that.
You missed all
I see the
the.
names of a bunch of people I recognized in there. I just haven't.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you were trying to be all focused on the discussion rather than the
Yeah.
chat. Yeah, Shannon's awesome. And oh, by the way,
Yep.
Shannon, I think you knew that I was trying to get to um, the Faithless Forum this year. Well, turns out I'm going to be there. So
Yeah.
we'll have to have a Canadian table to represent Canada.
Well, from what I see, that seems to be a good percentage of the YouTube videos here.
Well, yeah, there's me and Shannon, Apologia, and Godless Cranium, and
Vice Rhino.
and whatnot. And yeah. Oh, I'm getting a hug. Uh-oh. I'll be prepared. Go Canada. No, it's be just blame Canada, with their hockey hullabaloo and that bitch and Murray too. Sorry, off on a tangent. Yeah,
well,
yeah,
it
it should
used
be
to
a
be
good time.
Blame Canada. Now I'm looking for one of you guys willing to give me sanctuary.
Anytime you need somewhere to go, I'll tell you right now. Where Shannon lives on the East Coast in Nova Scotia, it's fucking beautiful. I've been there multiple times, and of course, the West Coast is also beautiful. It'll take you to Vancouver Island, up to Whistler. It's phenomenal here, man. Canada is a great, beautiful country, and you could literally stick our population into California, and there would still be more Californians. So we have lots of space with few people. And the weirdest thing is that we have the stupidest traffic jams at times. So I can't figure that
You
out.
kind of broke up there.
Oh, sorry. I said we have, our population you can fit into California, and there'd still be more Californians. But for some reason, we have all the space and fewer people, and so there's lots to do here. Except we still have stupid traffic jams for some reason that are quite comparable to some of the traffic jams I've driven through in LA, which is like nuts. And we only have 3 lanes in our highway here.
Well, I was
right.
ready. If somebody can give me a place to live up there, I'll just build a boat and come across Lake Superior.
So you're gonna want to be in Ontario somewhere. I do have friends in Ontario, so that's good to hear that you're getting better. By the way, Shannon.
Actually, it seemed if I had a choice of where to live, it does seem that there's a number of people I've been talking to online who seem to be in Alberta.
Yeah.
And
if I'm correct, I think Paul's from Alberta. Apologia is from Alberta.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, it definitely would be my thing to live as close to the major museum as possible.
Which one?
Yeah, well, just the major natural history museum. The Tyrrell Museum is the one I'm familiar with.
Right. Yes,
I
have not been, but I have been to. We have. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head for some reason. He lives there, but he's from Saskatchewan. Okay, cool. The BC Museum of Natural about the First Nations peoples and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah,
like the Coast Salish and Haida and stuff like that. All that lived all up and down the coast here, and it's an anthropological type museum about their history, and it's phenomenal. It's very cool.
Yeah, well, that's whenever I lived near one, like in Minneapolis, I had a membership to the Science Museum of Minnesota. That was just where I'd go to hang out anytime I had free time. I actually spent so much time there that the new volunteers were asking me questions about the paleontology exhibits because I knew more about them than what they were covering in their training.
Cool. Oh, the Tyrrell. Oh, yes, in Drumheller, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, I forgot about that. That's what the one you were referring to. Awesome. All right. Well, I think we can bring this to an end, I suppose.
Okay.
And we'll jump into an after party if you're up for it.
Oh yeah,
You think
sure.
you can handle it? Because you've been
Yeah.
in my after parties before,
Oh yeah.
anyways. He got to cheat, you see, because I usually don't let people into my after parties until they've already been on my show. But recently, I've had a few cheaters, like Terry from Australia.
Yeah. Yeah. If
Uh,
you just give me a couple minutes in between here to,
yep,
you know,
I'm going to take
refill
a
my
bit of a
drink
break
and
too.
take care of some basic functions.
Right. I know those ones are usually followed with a flushing sound.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so we're going to do an after party. So Matthew, I suppose you'll probably want to jump in. And sorry, Lavender, Canada will take you. If you can get your ass up here, we'll take you. And thank you everybody for joining Purple and myself for this discussion this afternoon. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Okay.
I had a good time.
Again, I'm sorry I wasn't more interactive with the people in the side chat there. You know, because
that's okay, man. We muddled through this one pretty good. I think we got all the major points we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you know, I've been in the side chat a lot of times, and sometimes I get a little annoyed if it seems that the people on the panel aren't paying any attention to the side chat. So I just feel bad that I wasn't able to be more interactive with that and answer some questions for them.
Well, you can interact with the people in the after party and answer any questions they might throw at you.
Yeah.
Deal. And thanks everyone for jumping in here. And hello, Pine Snake. Pine Snake's everywhere too. He's like another Shane. He's like everywhere.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to Pine Snake.
Yeah. All right. All right, Shannon. I thought you took off. Okay. Well, goodbye, everybody, and thanks for joining us. And thanks everyone for dropping in on this. And nice to meet you, Donna Beck, the neighbor of Purple. And thanks to you, Purple, for joining me today.
Yeah, I thought she was going to set up a new account. She wanted to go by Sloth Girl. Awesome. She actually has a tattoo of a sloth on her arm.
Oh, very cool. Does she move really slowly too, or? You know, speaking of sloths, I always thought it was kind of funny, the whole Ark story with Noah. I said, well, how the fuck did the sloths get all the way from South America over to the Ark? Because it takes them literally like an hour to move 12 feet, for Christ's sake. So yeah. I wonder how long it would have taken them to get all the way over. But anyway. Oh, Shannon, too bad you can't join us. I know you got to moderate some crazy-ass debate channel. I don't know why you do that, man. I watch a lot of stuff like that, and I just facepalm or head palm, facepalm, head desk, whatever. My crap out of it. I always end up with bruises from some of these comments, man. It's
a lot worse when you wear glasses. I kept bending up my glasses because of that.
Yeah, I kept having to get new prescriptions. That's okay, Matthew. Not a big deal. You can jump in whenever you're able to. But I'm glad you were able to hang out with us while we had this discussion. All right. Again, thank you so much for joining me. And thanks again, everyone, for watching. I know I keep saying that, and then I keep rambling on about something else because I'm kind of like a chatty Cathy doll that way. Once you pull the string, that's it. It takes a few hours to go back all the way. Anyways, we're going to do an after party, and you guys that usually join us, you know where to find the link. And if you do not, or if you are not in my group chat, and you are interested in joining the after party, just send me a message on Twitter. You can find me at 604 Atheist. And I will give you a link to join once I do a credit check on you. Yeah. I'm kidding. And you can join us.
Yeah, you're going to have to Twitter me the link too, because I'm not in your group there.
No, of course. And if there's room, I'll stick you in there. But I warn you, you're going to want to mute it for 8 hours like every other minute. So because I went in there after being out of it for a couple hours today, and there was like 247 messages that I missed. I'm like, holy shit, these people talk too much.
Yeah, well, that's like I've got a Discord server set up. I haven't really figured out how to use it, and it's every time I go in there, there's just too many messages for me to even figure it out. You know what's coming from where.
Discord.
So yeah,
it's crazy. I was thinking of doing a Discord, but I'm already a member of a few different ones, so I'll just stick with those. And apparently Sassy Atheist has a Discord, so that's where you can find her if you're interested. And I will figure out how to find you. What's your Discord called, Sassy, by the way? Maybe put that in the comments later. Anyways, all right, so we'll close this one off. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. And remember, guys, what I always say at the end of these things, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.